last day in Paris for 2 weeks. Now we're collecting the car. Who's driving the car for 4 hours to Poitiers? Yeah. And I have to drive out of this airport, for God's sake. Yeah.
Je ne parle pas français.
You parle a bit more Francais than you did when you arrived.
Je ne parle drive in français.
Hopefully see you later, all in one piece.
So, it's Monday, the 14th of August, and we are in Poitiers, a township approximately 45 minutes drive away from Val, where we were staying.
We picked up the hire car on Friday last week from Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport, and I'm pretty thankful on a few counts for what we decided to pick for a car. So we've got an SUV, which is real helpful because most of the roads aren't wide enough for 2 cars. It also has Apple CarPlay, and I have a French SIM, so that has made it also real helpful with regards to maps and finding where you're going. So the hire car is a Lynx & Co car. I have no idea who makes those. I've never heard of it. It's a hybrid, which was a bit weird because I turned it on and off 3 times before realizing that. However, like I said, having Apple CarPlay is real helpful because I've been able to plug my phone into the car and know how it all works because it's the same as mine, and the maps come up on the screen in the middle of the dashboard, and it's helped us to be able to find out where we're going.
And we've been able to change it to the English language translation instead of the French.
Yeah, so when we take the hire car back, parlez-vous français? No, this car does not anymore. Sorry, people.
So they'll have to figure out how to turn it back. Or if we feel generous, we might.
So the drive from Paris to Val was 6 hours. That was pretty long, and down mostly motorways, which are freeways, and they are all toll roads.
So the 6 hours wasn't just point to point. We did stop a couple of times on the way through.
And if you're planning to drive through France, you'll need to know that the toll roads have gates where you have to pay every now and again, and a normal MasterCard or Visa pay card, that a currency card, doesn't work on the toll gates. So you'll need to have a backup pay method. We stopped at 2 service stations. Service stations are a little bit hit and miss, and they really aren't like you might imagine in England.
Or New Zealand.
Yeah. So sometimes it might just be a vending machine and a portaloo. And sometimes it might be a garage and a cafe. You just never know. Driving locally, oh, that's been pretty stressful, really. Sitting on the other side of the car and driving, I didn't have too many dramas with that. But when it comes to arriving at junctions and roundabouts and things, and trying to work out what direction you're going in, the map directions, although they're in the center console, are on your right and not your left. And when you're sitting at a junction working out which road you've got to drive down, you've got to convert it all to left and right, and which side of the road am I on here, and turning left and turning right is quite tricky. Going around a roundabout the wrong way round is a little bit mind-blowing, so it's real helpful to have a passenger.
Yeah, I found from the passenger seat it's much easier to locate the signs with the arrows and the do not go this way, so I can point them out to Melanie. Makes it a bit easier for her. But I would never drive myself right now. It's just, for me, I would have to be in this country for at least a month passengering on the other side of the car to be comfortable with driving here, because when my mind gets a bit sort of overloaded, the default mechanism is still to head to the left, and it needs to be to head to the right. I don't know how people get off aeroplanes on the opposite side of the world after travelling 23 hours and come to New Zealand and then jump in a car that drives on the left instead of the right with jet lag. It's crazy.
Yeah. We drove around Poitiers this morning, and that was a bit
interesting.
Yes, because Poitiers is quite a densely populated town that's on the side of a hill with a cathedral at the top of the hill and a train station at the bottom of the hill. We didn't actually successfully locate the centre-ville because we got lost in the little side streets, which were two-way sometimes, but really only one car width, and sort of 6-story high buildings on both sides. It was like a rabbit warren.
But by the time we'd driven around the same block twice, Melanie was becoming a bit frazzled, and we did have to pull over. Thankfully, we're both very similarly minded, so when she gets a bit frazzled, I'll often get frazzled by the same thing, and it's been quite good that we've been able to sort of calm each other down. If one of us is frazzled, the other one can calm them down. We recognise this in each other, don't we?
We do. On Sunday afternoon, we went to a local fete. My dad had organised to go there, and there was a number of things we learnt real fast. So in the usual trend, disability access, they really only paid lip service to it. So when we arrived, we saw a sign saying disabled access, and we're told we can't go in there. And their solution was, leave the wheelchair here and go and park in the field on the other side of the castle. So I was a bit confused by that, to be fair, because how am I meant to get back to the wheelchair if I need a wheelchair? Anyway.
We got out with the wheelchair and they went and parked.
Yes. Pretty challenging ground. It was sort of like gravel, stony gravel sort of area. Little tiny, sort of like a craft fit market, I suppose. And local events like that apparently only run on cash. So that was the first problem we came upon, is we did not have any cash. And but on the flip side of that, we very quickly worked out that we were in Little Britain.
We were. Gosh, either that or everyone else started to speak. I could suddenly understand the French that everyone else was speaking. So we had a few beers and things, and then the castle, the chateau, was open for tours later on in the afternoon. And here, castles really were castles. Most of them have been converted to stately homes now, and that's if they're still standing. Because of the history that goes back for how far it goes back for castles, a lot of the castles that are still owned and still standing, they just sort of do the upkeep enough to keep it from falling down, and will only renovate a part of it that they live in, and the rest will not be sort of renovated to the same standard. So we were allowed to walk around the castle, up lots and lots of windy spiral stone staircases into the ramparts and things like that. But the fireplaces were still there, but the floors were not, quite often. And there was, some of it had been restored and some of it had not been, and we weren't only allowed into the bit that had just been restored enough to stop it from falling over. It had a 3/4 of a moat, which is unusual because when people buy castles and turn them into houses, they tend to get rid of all the castle type features. So it was really nice to see that one still had those, and I believe it was recently purchased by an American couple 2 years ago.
So it was a very nice castle. this point, I was the only person in a wheelchair. We were the token. I was the token disabled person, and also we were sort of like a bit of a feature because nobody had ever met anyone from New Zealand, and of course I've still got the flag on the back of my wheelchair from last year, so everybody knew that we were from New Zealand, although some thought we were from Australia because they can't tell the difference. Then we came back from outside of the castle, and I was rolling down the stony area back to where we'd started and saw a guy in a wheelchair. He must have just arrived because I hadn't seen anyone else in a wheelchair.
So I went off to the toilet. I didn't see this guy in the wheelchair at all. I had gone to the toilet, and when I went to come back, I was looking for Melanie's wheelchair, expecting to find it up somewhere by the chateau that we had just left. I couldn't see her. I couldn't see her anywhere. So as I was walking up, I heard this bellicose laugh that is unmistakably Melanie. And I looked to my left, and there she is sitting in her wheelchair, next to this little slightly older French guy in his wheelchair. I went up and stood just in front of them, and I raised my hands and said, "On your marks, get set." And they both start laughing.
So as it turns out, this chap was called Jean-Luc, and he couldn't speak a word of French.
You mean English?
Sorry, English, I do mean English. He couldn't speak a word of English, and neither could the two people that he was with. But I have Google Translate, and we found out a whole new world of features for Google Translate. So when we told him what we were using, he downloaded Google Translate as well. So we had one translating French to English and the other one translating English to French, and we were able to have a conversation with them and had a good old laugh and a few more beers without actually speaking each other's language. It was pretty cool.
And not only that, but we've arranged to catch up with them again on Wednesday evening, haven't we?
We have indeed.
Jean-Luc's place.
Yes, indeed.
And share some more drinks and some stories.
Yeah. And then today I found out if you use Google Translate, something else that's really quite useful for Google Translate is, apart from the fact you can type in and translate, you can also speak into it and translate real time, like we were doing, and you can take a picture of a sign in front of you, and it will translate the sign into the language you want it to translate into. So that's a pretty cool feature too. So who needs to speak multiple languages? All you need is a phone, a SIM card, and some data.